When you finally decide to value yourself first, something powerful begins to shift, not just in your life, but in how people perceive and respond to you. Too many men pour all their energy into winning someone's approval, especially in romantic relationships, and they lose themselves in the process. But the truth is, women are drawn to men who don't need to be chosen because they've already chosen themselves. This kind of self-worth doesn't come from external validation, it comes from within. When a man stops chasing and starts building, growing, and elevating, he changes the entire dynamic around him. Valuing yourself means waking up every morning and choosing growth over desperation. It means you stop begging for attention and instead channel that energy into your purpose. You become a man who lives with intention, who sets boundaries not to push people away but to protect his peace. And that energy, it's magnetic. Women feel it when a man carries himself like he doesn't need them to complete him. He's already whole. He's not chasing, he's attracting. And often the very woman who took him for granted, who thought he'd always be there waiting, begins to see the gravity of what she lost. When a woman sees a man respecting himself, she starts respecting him more. It's not arrogance, it's self-respect. And self-respect looks like not checking her profile 10 times a day, not sending that late-night text, not responding to the breadcrumbs. It looks like going to the gym when your mind says stay in bed. It looks like showing up to your goals with discipline. It's about becoming the man you always knew you could be, regardless of who stays or leaves. You stop trying to prove your worth to anyone because you know it's already there. You see, when a woman leaves, she sometimes expects you to crumble, to chase, to prove her power over you. But when she sees you rise instead, when she sees that your world didn't fall apart without her, it shakes her. Because the reality is, people often return not because they miss you, but because they miss the version of you who made them feel secure, admired, or desired. But when that version is now stronger, more grounded, more unavailable, suddenly you become a mystery. And mystery draws attention. Choosing yourself doesn't mean you stop loving others. It means you stop abandoning yourself in the process. You stop overgiving to people who underappreciate you. You stop explaining your worth. You start being okay with people leaving because you understand that anyone who truly values you won't make you beg for a seat at the table. You become so rooted in your own worth that silence is your reply, peace is your response, and growth is your revenge. And here's what happens next. She notices. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually. She'll see you glowing differently. She'll hear about your progress. She'll see the way others now admire the man you've become. And it'll hit her. Not because you tried to make her see it, but because you didn't need her to anymore. Your absence, your calmness, your elevation, that's what makes her curious again. Because you didn't play games, you simply rose. What many don't understand is that confidence isn't about loudness or showing off, it's quiet. It's in the way you walk into a room with peace. It's in the way you don't engage in arguments that drain your energy. It's in the way you protect your time, your goals, your values. And when you operate from that place of inner strength, you attract people who see your worth without needing reminders. Let her feel your absence, not your desperation. Let her wonder why you didn't chase. Let her see that losing you meant losing someone who is rare. Because you are. But you'll only believe that when you stop tying your identity to whether she returns. You weren't put on this earth to be half of someone's heart. You were created with purpose, and the right woman will recognize that without you needing to convince her. So no, you don't get her back by texting more, pleading more, or being overly available. You get her attention back when you reclaim your energy and direct it toward building something better. You become so focused on your path that even the idea of going backward feels like betrayal to yourself. And in that space, if she comes back to a version of you who doesn't need her, but who may choose her if she's worthy of where you're headed. Value yourself, not for her, not for revenge, but for you, because when you do, the world responds, and sometimes so does she. When it comes to making someone truly regret losing you, silence often speaks louder than any words ever could. But beyond silence, it's your transformation, your evolution, that becomes the loudest message of all. When you take the heartbreak, the pain, the disappointment, and use it as fuel to rebuild yourself stronger, wiser, and more focused, You send a message that lingers in the hearts of those who once overlooked your value. Regret doesn't come from seeing someone hurt and broken. It comes from seeing someone thrive without you. That's the real turning point. This is why the second step is crucial. You must evolve unapologetically. This isn't about pretending you're fine or putting on a facade. It's about becoming genuinely better, not bitter. It's about taking everything that broke you and turning it into the foundation of your next level. You grow not to prove them wrong, but to prove to yourself that you are capable of much more than that version of you who once begged to stay in someone's life. The most powerful evolution begins in private. You don't need to announce it, post it, or perform it for validation. You simply commit. You commit to rising, you commit to learning, you commit to healing, even when no one is watching. You read more, move more, eat better, think sharper. You upgrade your mindset. You create new goals and build systems around achieving them. You stop explaining your pain and start expressing your power through your actions. Evolution also means setting emotional boundaries. You no longer let the memory of someone dictate your worth. You no longer allow their absence to hold your progress hostage. You stop checking if they've moved on, stop waiting for a sign. Instead, you wake up and get to work on yourself, on your goals, on your peace. You let the world see that losing you wasn't just a mistake, it was a loss of something irreplaceable. And what happens when you begin to evolve? You become different. You speak differently, walk differently, and attract differently. The same energy that was once given to chasing them is now redirected toward creating a life so full and meaningful that you no longer crave their presence to feel complete. You're no longer trying to impress them, you're impressing yourself. And that shift, that's when people start noticing. She may look from afar and think, he's changed, not in the bitter, distant way, but in the elevated, unreachable kind of way. Because now you're not in the same emotional space she left you in. You've grown. You've let go of the past, but you've also taken its lessons and turned them into purpose. Your evolution becomes the reason she rethinks her decision, and whether she comes back or not becomes irrelevant, because now you have options, clarity, and standards. It's also important to understand that real evolution is quiet. It's not about showcasing your success or hoping someone will notice. It's about becoming so invested in your life that their absence no longer feels like a wound. It feels like space that was needed for growth. You give yourself permission to move forward, to dream again, to love again, starting with yourself. You stop being available to people who left you without explanation. You stop being emotionally generous to those who didn't value your heart when it was in their hands. You learn how to protect your time and energy. You learn that not everyone deserves access to you just because they had it once. That's evolution, knowing your worth, honoring it, and acting accordingly. Don't underestimate how impactful your transformation can be. Often people don't regret losing you because they haven't seen what they lost. But when they finally witness your glow, your peace, your discipline, and your happiness without them, that's when it sinks in. Not because you chased them, not because you tried to make them jealous, but because you let them go and chose yourself fully. So evolve unapologetically. Grow louder than your grief. Be better than your bitterness. Don't wait for an apology to start healing. Don't wait for closure to move on. Let your growth be the answer. Let your success be the reply. Let your peace be the final chapter. Because when you evolve, you don't just recover. You rise above. And in that rising, you become someone they no longer recognize. Someone they can't access the same way. Someone they can only look at from a distance and wonder how they ever thought they could walk away from you so easily. Your power doesn't lie in how loudly you speak, how much you post, or how many people you try to make jealous. Your power lies in how much you grow without needing to explain it. That's the kind of evolution that not only changes you, but leaves a lasting imprint on anyone who took you for granted. When someone lets you go or fails to see your value, it's easy to get stuck in a cycle of trying to prove your worth to them, especially when emotions are high and your heart feels shattered. But the most effective and empowering way to truly make someone regret losing you is not by chasing, not by trying to make them see what they missed, but by mastering the art of indifference. This doesn't mean you stop caring about yourself or your future. It means you stop giving emotional power to someone who no longer holds a place in your life. Indifference is not coldness, it's clarity. It's choosing peace over performance, self-worth over validation, and direction over distraction. When you become indifferent, you're not ignoring your feelings. You're just choosing to no longer let those feelings dictate your behavior. That's when the tables begin to turn. Because the moment they reach out expecting the old version of you, the one who answered instantly, who hoped for another chance, who accepted the breadcrumbs of attention, you're not there. You're not emotionally available for chaos anymore. You're no longer trying to be chosen. You've already chosen yourself. And that silence, that detachment, that's loud, that's powerful, that makes people pause. Because emotional detachment is confusing to those who once had emotional control. Suddenly, their influence no longer works. Their return doesn't shake you. Their texts don't bring the butterflies anymore. They bring questions. And that shift in energy becomes the real consequence of their actions. They start realizing that they no longer have access to the same version of you, and what they thought would always be there has now evolved beyond reach. Mastering indifference doesn't mean being unkind or arrogant. It simply means choosing to be unavailable to patterns that broke you. It's deciding to show up for your healing, even when it's hard. You don't wait around for them to realize your worth. You become so immersed in your growth, your peace, your future, that their absence no longer feels like a gap, it feels like a blessing. It's freedom, it's space you now use to build, to thrive, to redefine your standards. You also stop romanticizing the pain. So often we replay the past, hoping to find closure in our own memories. But with indifference, you stop needing closure. You accept what happened without needing to justify it. You stop asking why they left or why they couldn't love you right. Instead, you begin asking, what can I learn? How can I protect myself better in the future? What parts of me need healing so I don't lose myself in someone else again? That's the emotional maturity indifference brings. You no longer seek revenge or responses, you seek peace. You walk away not to make a statement, but because you no longer need to stay. You no longer bend your worth to fit someone's confusion. And that grounded energy is rare, it's magnetic, it's undeniable. What happens next is not your concern. Whether they realize what they lost or not, whether they come back or stay silent forever, it doesn't matter anymore. Because you're not waiting, you're not hoping, you're moving. Indifference allows you to break the chains of emotional dependence. You stop performing for love. You stop shrinking to be accepted. You stop showing up for people who don't show up for you. And if they do come back, because many often do, it's too late. Not because you want revenge, but because you've changed. You've tasted peace. You've experienced the power of living for yourself. You've built a routine, a mindset, a life where you no longer seek emotional survival from people who once caused emotional damage. The old triggers no longer trigger. The old wounds have scars now, not open pain. You've healed, you've outgrown. And you don't lower your frequency to accommodate someone who only valued you once they lost you. That's the real regret they feel. Not your absence, but your transformation. Not that you left, but that you're no longer the person who would have stayed. They don't miss the old you. They miss the access. They miss the loyalty, the love, the support you gave so effortlessly. But your indifference proves that love is not something to be begged for. It's something to be honored, reciprocated, protected. And if it wasn't, then it wasn't love. It was attachment. So become emotionally unavailable to games. Be unavailable to inconsistency. Be unavailable to anyone who needs to lose you to realize your worth. Because your value isn't dependent on who recognizes it. It's defined by how you carry it, protect it, and refuse to discount it for anyone. That's the essence of true strength. Not needing validation from those who mishandled your heart. Indifference is freedom. It's not a performance. It's a shift. It's no longer centering your life around someone else's presence or absence. It's knowing you can live, thrive, and love again without needing to go backward. It's knowing that the best version of you isn't chasing, it's choosing, and you're choosing you. Let your detachment speak. Let your peace echo. Let your silence be the response. Healing is not just about letting go of someone else. It's about returning fully to yourself. And one of the most powerful ways to make someone regret losing you is to rise so high in your personal growth that they can't even recognize the person they once had access to. Point 4 is about your elevation. Not superficial change, but a deep internal transformation that manifests in every area of your life. This kind of growth makes you untouchable, not because you're unavailable, but because you've become intentional. You've become purposeful with your time, your space, your energy, and your presence. When you focus on becoming the best version of yourself, not out of spite, but out of self-respect, you naturally outgrow the people and patterns that once drained you. You stop begging for closure. You stop needing to be seen. You start investing in yourself in ways that no relationship ever did. The gym becomes your therapy. Books become your best friends. Your mornings are no longer consumed by sadness, but driven by discipline. You build routines that nourish your soul, habits that protect your peace, and boundaries that honor your worth. And this version of you, she is powerful. She's the woman who glows differently. Not because life suddenly became easy, but because she chose to fight through her pain with purpose. She's no longer surviving for validation. She's living in alignment. Her confidence isn't based on someone else's attention. It's based on her own reflection, her own standards, her own commitment to never go back to a life where she abandoned herself for love. When he looks back, and he will, he won't just see the woman he once knew. He'll see a version of you that he never even tried to understand, a version of you that he was never ready for. That realization is what triggers regret. Not your silence, not your absence, but the undeniable fact that the woman he lost now thrives without him. She no longer longs for his return. She doesn't check for his texts. She's too focused on building a life he was never equipped to help her build. Elevating your life doesn't just mean career success or a polished appearance. It means emotional strength, mental clarity, spiritual grounding. You become so rooted in your identity that no one's departure can shake your core. You stop settling for temporary comfort and start creating long-term fulfillment. And in doing so, you become an example, not of revenge, but of resilience. You heal your inner child. You let go of past versions of yourself that were addicted to chaos, that confuse intensity with love, that believed they had to earn someone's loyalty. And instead, you begin to rewire your beliefs. You start saying no to red flags, no to confusion, no to emotional starvation disguised as affection. You create new standards, not out of bitterness, but because you finally learned how much you deserve. You stop playing small. You stop apologizing for your standards. You stop shrinking in rooms where your light is too bright, because now you've seen yourself fully, and there's no turning back. And the beautiful part? You don't need to broadcast it. You don't have to prove anything. Your growth becomes obvious. The people who once doubted you, ignored you, underestimated you, they feel the shift. They see the difference. And while you're too busy evolving, they're stuck remembering the version of you they never truly valued. Regret is the byproduct of someone realizing too late that they mishandled something sacred. But the woman you are becoming, she doesn't need that validation. She's moved on with grace. She no longer prays for their return. She prays for her own continued healing. She no longer tries to make anyone stay. She learns how to stay committed to herself. So focus on elevation, not just revenge or emotional reaction, but true self-reclamation. Build a life that feels good on the inside, even if no one sees it on the outside. Protect your peace so fiercely that anyone who threatens it is automatically disqualified. Make your glow so authentic that people wonder how you manage to shine after being shattered. That's your power, that's your message. Don't rise to prove anyone wrong. Rise to prove to yourself that no heartbreak can steal your destiny. Become so content, so fulfilled, so aligned, that their regret becomes irrelevant. Because you're not here to be missed, you're here to be respected, to be honored. And if they couldn't do that, they were never meant to stay. Let your elevation speak for you. Let your life tell the story. Let your growth be the loudest response.